What's happening, everyone? So I've been selling on Amazon for about 4.5 years now. I've done way over 1.4, 1.5 million in both my stores combined. And in this video, I want to talk to you about my top 8 tips for, excuse me, Amazon FBA accounting in 2024 for beginners. Let's dive into the video. So without further ado, I'm diving straight in here to the tips. Now, at any point, if you decide that you can't be bothered with this and you just want to get an accountant straight away, there is £100 off Awesome link below. Awesome's an accountant that I've been using for around about 3.5 years now to do all my books. There's also a link below to set up a limited company for only £50, which is like the cheapest you can do it for, and they do all that professionally for you as well. So anyway, let's dive into the video. Tip number 1, I've got my notes here. Tip number 1 is create a purchase tracker for every single one of your purchases. Now, a lot of people don't do this and they end up getting confused at a later date. If you don't create a purchase tracker for all of your purchases, how can you track your business progress? How can you track an ASIN that's gone AWOL, say that you sent into Amazon and there was an issue with it? How can you figure out where that information is if you haven't got it tracked, right? How can you look back at your cost of goods to figure out how much you paid for an item if you haven't got it tracked? How can you look for your order number for an item if you haven't got it tracked? You need to create a purchase tracker, a spreadsheet. You need to input the order number. You need to input the price for their products and everything like that, links, and then just make sure you've got a track of everything, every single thing that you buy. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, very close to that, is create a Google Drive for everything. So you should actually be creating a Google Drive for absolutely everything that you use in your Amazon business. Within that Google Drive, there should absolutely be your purchase tracker. You should also have a Google Drive that's just collecting all your receipts and everything like that. And all the information, say if you're creating listings like bundles and things like that, you want to have all your listings on one of them, your keywords, your pictures and everything like that. You need this curation of everything that's to do with your business in that Google Drive, so that at a later date you can come back to all this information, your company setup, receipt, if you're going to set it up, for example, put it all in there, and then everything is like this hub of your business, this one place where you can go back and get any information you need at any date. That's the second tip that I would do. Tip number 3 is to not overthink things. Now, it can be really overwhelming in the early days to overthink things, especially the accounting and bookkeeping, because quite frankly, it is confusing to start with. It's a minefield that you're not going to know about, but it's very important to not get too overwhelmed by it. Look, the worst thing that's going to happen, even if you forget or don't get an accountant from the start, or you feel like you get a little bit behind, you're going to have 10, 11 months before you have to even start thinking about filing your corporation tax return, okay, after your first year. So although it's something that is required, it's not urgent from the start. So don't get too overwhelmed. If you need an accountant from the start, get an accountant. That's the next point we're going to move on to in a minute. But try not to get overwhelmed. Everything is achievable. Everything's figure-outable. It's definitely not a word for the relentless, especially in the Amazon world. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Don't get overwhelmed by it. It definitely needs to be on the to-do list, but just don't get overwhelmed. Your focus at the start is to get sales on Amazon. Tip number 4 is limited company. Okay, now I think that it's very, very much essential to have a limited company from the start. And one of the main reasons I have this is because I started a limited company from the start, and someone that I started with didn't have a limited company at the start. And unfortunately, when they went to the £85,000 threshold to go VAT registered, they tried to switch to a limited company and Amazon wouldn't let them do it for about 9 months. So it really slowed their growth down. Now, it costs like 50 quid below to set up a limited company. It's not a lot, but it does cover you as well. Not only the risk from Amazon when you switch over from a sole trader to a limited company, I've heard a few horror stories, but it protects you. It protects your liability. You've got limited liability with a limited company, which means that if you make some wrong decisions and you've got a debt in the business, you're not liable for that personally. So they're not going to go after your house, your family and things like that. So I just think it's a good idea to get it from the start, to be honest, guys. And the next thing is separate business bank accounts. Now, if you set up a limited company, you're going to have to get a separate business bank account. But if you don't set up a limited company, even the minimum that you need, the minimum is your own business bank account. Don't do what I used to do when I used to do drop shipping back in the day, where sometimes I'll buy some of the purchases from my personal card and then transfer the money back over and everything like that. Trust me, if you want an accounting headache, like in the future, then that's the way to do it. By all means, do it. but you're going to have an accounting headache in the future. Trust me, that's from someone that's been there. Make sure that everything, at least as a minimum, goes through one business bank account. Do not mix it with your personal. The next one is get an accountant from the start if you are worried. Now, as I say, I think they do mini packages awesome below, about 50 quid a month or something, which isn't that much if you're starting out. Get one from the start if you're worried. Now, do you need one from the start? No, you don't need one from the start, but I would recommend one from the start if you're concerned about this stuff. Here's what's going to happen. If you don't get one from the start, at a later date, you're going to likely, unless you're doing the books yourself, which is rare, unless you've got that experience, which fair enough, then around 7 or 8 months in, you're going to want to get an accountant, right? And at that date, whoever you contact to be your accountant, I can give my recommendation, but whoever you contact is going to want to reconcile your books for the last 7, 8 months, X months, however long you've been trading before. And they're going to charge you a lump fee for that. You know, it's not just like, oh, let's wait 8 months, then pay X amount a month and hopefully miss the payment for the 8 months. No. They're going to reconcile so that you're not going to get around it. Okay, so if you want to get an accountant and you want to get organized from the start and you want to know exactly how to do your accounting from the start, get an accountant right now from the start. You know, like it makes sense if that's the way you want to go. But if not, that's what's going to happen. You're going to have to reconcile later. It's up to you however you want to do it. If you can't be bothered and you want to just try and get sales and not worry about it for now, that's totally fine. Some people work differently, but my recommendation is to get one if you're going to be overwhelmed by it. My tip number 7 is use an accounting software. Now, Awesome, who I use, who I've talked about, they have their own accounting software built in, like Xero and Link My Books, and that's all included in the package for you. But if you want to do it yourself, or if you're using a different accountant or whatever, then you need to use Xero, you need to use Link My Books and get all that software from the start, 100%, just to make sure you're tracking everything correctly. And number 8, the final one, is to collect all of your receipts. Collect all of your receipts and ensure you're claiming everything back. Now, this is just a super important point. That Google Drive I spoke to you about is not only essential for collecting your receipts, but you need to make sure that you speak to an accountant or a specialist or someone that has been in this business for a while to figure out exactly what you can claim back. Because the last thing you want to be doing is not putting receipts in there that you can claim back. Let me give you an example of a few things that you can claim back. You can claim back, if you rent a storage center, you can claim back the storage stuff. You know, like for the rent from your premises that you're prepping from. You can claim back all product costs, obviously. They offset from your tax return, or offset from the sale price. You can claim back camera equipment if you're taking pictures of your products, for example. You know, you can claim back fuel if you're doing retail arbitrage, or fuel if you're driving to meetings to meet suppliers, for example. Many things that you can claim back. And the last thing that you want to do is not be claiming back everything that you can do. So I would say speak to a specialist, speak to someone like Awesome to get some good advice on this stuff. Speak to a seller that's been doing it a while. Make sure you understand this stuff. Okay, make sure you understand this stuff. And I've got a final tip as well here. My 9th final extra bonus tip, if you like, which I wasn't going to put in, is the tax codes on Amazon. So you're not going to need this at the start, but when you become VAT registered, when you're doing over 85,000, it's very important that within Amazon, you understand the tax codes. You've got the 0% tax codes, and then you've got the 20% tax codes. And when you're VAT registered, if there's a tax code that's 0%, then you're not going to be getting charged VAT on that. If the tax code is 20%, the VAT code, then you're going to be getting charged 20%. You need to make sure that the codes, once you become VAT registered, excuse me, are applicable for the exact product that you're selling. Otherwise, you're going to end up paying VAT on something that hasn't got VAT, or you're going to be not paying VAT on something that should have VAT on it. Either way, you can get in trouble or you can lose money. So that's a bonus tip for later on. But guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you check out Awesome below with the discount links. Let me know if you've got any questions below. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.